Rain slammed the tin roof like gunfire the moment the phone buzzed again. Mira Hanol didn't mean to send the pictures. Her hands were shaking too badly to see the name at the top of the chat. Blood had dried along her ribs in dark, ugly streaks. Her swollen wrist throbbed as she lifted the phone, breath hitching, pain slicing through her belly as the baby kicked. Hard, frightened, alive. Please, she whispered to the empty room, teeth chattering. Just make it stop. Another vibration. Another message she couldn't read through the blur of tears. She tapped the gallery, selected the images she'd taken for evidence. Her bruised face, the split lip, the handprint purple and black on her back, and hit send. Only after the screen flashed delivered did she see the name. Kang Junseo. Her heart dropped into her stomach. No. No. She tried to pull the phone back as if that could undo it. Her breath came fast, sharp, panic clawing up her throat. Kang Junseo wasn't the clinic contact she thought she was texting. He wasn't the social worker. He wasn't anyone safe. He was a ghost story in Seoul's underworld. A man whose name shut mouths. A man who didn't forgive mistakes. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking the Han River, Kang Junseo stared at his phone. The room was quiet except for the hum of the city and the faint clink of ice in his glass. He had just finished ordering a man's disappearance when the images loaded. He didn't move. The first photo showed a woman's face, young, pale, eyes red-rimmed and burning with something that wasn't just fear. The second showed her side, bruised so badly it made his jaw tighten. The third. His fingers clenched around the phone. She was pregnant. Who sent this? Junseo said softly. Everyone in the room froze. His right-hand man Min-tae leaned forward. Boss. Junseo's voice dropped. Dangerous calm slicing through the air. Find out who did this. Now. Min-tae Svaloved. Sir, the number. I don't care if it's a wrong number or a trap. Junseo snapped, standing abruptly. The glass shattered as it hit the floor. Someone put their hands on her. Silence. Then Junseo's phone vibrated again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to send this. Please don't reply. Please forget this. He stared at the message, chest tight in a way he didn't recognize. Forget? He typed back before thinking. Who did this to you? Mira stared at the reply like it was a loaded gun. Tears spilled freely now, her whole body trembling. I'm dead, she whispered. I just signed my death sentence. Her door creaked. She flinched so hard pain exploded through her side. Footsteps. Heavy. Familiar. You think you can hide things from me? A man's voice slurred from the hallway. Her blood ran cold. She shoved the phone under the mattress, scrambling to her feet too fast. The room spun. Please, she said as the door swung open. I didn't tell anyone, I swear. The man stepped in, shadow filling the room. Jinwook. Expensive jacket, cold eyes, the smell of alcohol and control clinging to him. You're lying again, he said calmly, then slapped her so hard she tasted blood. She cried out, crumpling, arms instinctively curling around her stomach. Touch her again, a voice said from her phone. The room froze. Jinwook frowned. What? Mira stared in horror as the phone vibrated violently beneath the mattress. Messages pouring in. Answer me. Where are you? If you don't answer, I will still find you. Jinwook yanked the phone out, eyes narrowing as he read the name. Kang Junseo. The color drained from his face. That's not funny, Jinwook muttered, laugh cracking. Who are you playing with? Mira shook her head, sobbing. I swear I didn't know. The phone rang. Junseo's name lit the screen like a death warrant. Jinwook's hand trembled as he answered. Ashilu. On the other end, Junseo smiled. It was not a kind smile. You have 10 minutes, he said, to step away from her. Jinwook swallowed hard. You don't understand, this is a misunderstanding. Every bruise on her body is a misunderstanding. Junseo cut in, voice like ice. You have 8 minutes now. Jinwook backed toward the door, panic flooding his face. Mira, tell him this isn't. Get out, Junseo said quietly. Jinwook ran. The door slammed. Silence crashed down. Mira slid to the floor, shaking so violently her teeth clacked. She lifted the phone with both hands, tears dripping onto the screen. I'm sorry, she whispered into it. I didn't mean to involve you. Please don't hurt him because of me. Junseo's reply came instantly. I'm not hurting him. I'm stopping him. She pressed her forehead to the floor, breaking. Why? A pause. Then, because no one should bleed like that alone. For the first time that night, Mira breathed. Far across the city, Junseo turned to Min-tae, eyes burning with something new, something dangerous. Bring the car, he said. And call the doctors. Min-tae hesitated. Boss, this could start a war. Junseo picked up his coat, gaze fixed on the glowing city below. Then let it, he said. The car cut through the rain like a blade, tires hissing against wet asphalt as Kang Junseo stared out the window. Phone clenched in his hand. Mira hadn't replied. Every second of silence tightened something vicious in his chest. Track her phone, he said. Min-tae was already typing. Signals weak. Old building. East Mapo district. Junseo's jaw hardened. East Mapo wasn't just poor, it was forgotten. A place where screams dissolved into concrete, and no one asked questions. She's hurt, Junseo muttered. And she's scared. Min-tae glanced at him, careful. Boss, is this personal? Junseo didn't answer. The car screeched to a stop outside a sagging apartment block, its flickering hallway lights casting sickly shadows. Two of Junseo's men were already there, umbrellas useless against the storm. Inside, Mira sat curled on the floor, arms wrapped around her stomach, rocking back and forth. It's okay, she whispered to the baby. I won't let him come back. I promise. A knock sounded. She froze. Another knock. Firmer. Mira, a man's voice called. It's Kang Junseo. Her heart slammed violently. She crawled backward until her spine hit the wall. I don't have money, she cried. I didn't mean to send. The door opened slowly. Junseo stepped inside, filling the small room with quiet authority. He stopped the moment he saw her. The pictures hadn't prepared him. Her face was swollen, one eye bruised nearly shut. Her lip trembled as she tried to push herself up and failed, pain forcing a small sob from her throat. Don't move, he said instantly, crossing the room. Please. The word surprised them both. He knelt in front of her, movements slow, careful, like she might shatter if he moved too fast. Did he touch you again? Junseo asked. Mira shook her head. He ran. After the call. Good, Junseo thought. That meant he could run longer. A medic rushed in behind him, but Mira recoiled violently. No, she cried. Please don't. Junseo raised a hand. It's okay. No one's here to hurt you. She looked at him through tears. You don't know me. Why are you doing this? He held her gaze. Because I saw the fear in your eyes before you ever spoke. Her breath hitched. The medic examined her gently. She needs a hospital. Tonight. Mira panicked. No hospitals. He'll find me. Junseo stood. He won't. How can you be sure? She whispered. His voice dropped. Because he just made the worst mistake of his life. As they helped her up, Mira winced, fingers digging into Junseo's sleeve without realizing it. He didn't pull away. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. As she was eased into the car, Mira finally let herself look at him properly. Tall, sharp jaw, eyes dark with control, and something else she couldn't name. You're really him, she said quietly. Aren't you? Junseo met her gaze. Yes. She swallowed. Then why haven't you asked whose baby this is? The car went very still. Junseo didn't look away. Because the answer won't change what happens next. Her eyes filled again. At the hospital, everything moved fast. White lights. Soft voices. Hands that didn't hurt. Junseo stood outside the room, arms crossed, watching through the glass as Mira lay back, exhaustion claiming her. Min-tae karetuli. Boss. We found Jinwook. Junseo's eyes stayed on Mira. Alive. Yes. He's hiding with a rival crew. Finally, Junseo turned. His expression was calm. Too calm. Good, he said. That means they're all involved now. Min-tae hesitated. Orders. Junseo's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think saving her makes you a hero? She belongs to me. Junseo typed slowly. She doesn't belong to anyone. He slipped the phone into his pocket and looked back through the glass. Mira stirred, eyes fluttering open. When she saw him, relief washed over her face so raw it punched the air from his lungs. She lifted a shaky hand toward the glass. Junseo stepped inside. I don't know what happens now, she whispered. I don't even know if I'll survive this. He sat beside her bed. You will. How can you promise that? His voice was low, steady. Because I don't break promises. She searched his face. What do you want from me? For the first time in years, Kang Junseo didn't have a clean answer. I want you safe, he said finally. Outside the room, Mintae's phone rang again. Another warning. Another threat. War was coming. And Mira, fragile and fierce, lay right at the center of it. Mira woke to silence so deep it felt unreal. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The soft beeping. The clean scent. The weight in her belly steady and reassuring. Then memory crashed back in. Hands, pain, rain, the name on her phone. Kang Junseo. She turned her head slowly. He was there. Seated in a chair by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, head slightly bowed as he spoke quietly into his phone. His voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel beneath it. No, he said. Not later. Tonight. If he breathes the same air as her again, I'll burn everything you own. He ended the call and looked up. Their eyes met. Myra's fingers tightened in the blanket. You stayed. Junseo stood instantly. Of course. She swallowed. You didn't have to. Yes, he said simply. I did. That unsettled her more than fear ever had. The doctor entered, explaining fractures that weren't fractures, bruises that would heal, stress that could harm the baby if it continued. Junseo listened like every word was a commandment. No stress, the doctor repeated firmly. She needs peace. Junseo nodded once. She'll have it. After the doctor left, Mira laughed weakly. You say that like you control the world. He looked at her. Only the parts that threaten what I protect. She hesitated. Why am I something you want to protect? The question hung between them. Before he could answer, the door burst open. Mintae stormed in, blood on his sleeve. They made a move, he said. Hospital parking level 3. We stopped it. Myra's heart leapt into her throat. What do you mean stopped it? Junseo's face darkened. How close? Too close, Mintae admitted. They knew her room number. Mira sat up too fast, gasping as pain flared. He's not done, she whispered. He never is. Junseo moved to her side instantly. Look at me. She did. He will not touch you again, he said quietly. I swear it. Her voice shook. You can't swear that. Men like him don't stop. Junseo leaned closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. Men like him stop when I decide they stop. Something inside her cracked. She covered her face, shoulders shaking. I'm so tired of being afraid. He didn't hesitate. He took her hand. His palm was warm. Steady. You won't be anymore, he said. Not while you're with me. With you, she echoed. Yes. She searched his eyes. What does that mean? It means you're coming somewhere safe, he replied. Somewhere no one reaches without permission. Her breath caught. Your world isn't safe. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It's safer than the one you were in. That night, they moved her. Quietly. Efficiently. No records. No cameras that weren't already owned. Mira was wheeled through a private exit. Hood pulled low, heart pounding as the city lights blurred past. She clutched her stomach. I don't want my baby growing up like this. Junseo looked at her sharply. Like what? Running, she whispered. Hiding. Afraid of men who think love means pain. The words hit him harder than any bullet ever had. The car gates opened into a compound surrounded by high walls and trees older than memory. The house was large, modern, silent. This is my residence, Junseo said. Mira stared. I can't stay here. You can't, he said. And you will. Inside, warmth wrapped around her. Clean. Calm. Safe in a way she didn't trust yet. A woman approached, bowing slightly. I'm Sunhee. I'll take care of you. Mira blinked. You don't even know me. Sunhee smiled gently. Boss doesn't protect strangers. That night, Mira slept deeper than she had in months. She dreamed of hands that didn't hurt. Junseo didn't sleep. He stood in his office, staring at a wall of photos. Jinwook, his associates, the rival crew sheltering him. Min-tae stood nearby. If you move now, it'll be open war. Junseo nodded. Good. Min-tae hesitated. Boss, is she off limits? Junseo cut in sharply. To everyone. Min-tae lowered his head. Understood. In the days that followed, Mira slowly healed. She learned the rhythm of the house. The quiet power. The way people watched Junseo like gravity itself bent around him. And the way he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. One evening, she found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, staring at a cup of tea like it had personally offended him. You don't know how to make it, she said softly. He glanced up. I don't drink it. She moved closer. Then why are you holding it? He exhaled. Because you do. Her chest tightened. She reached for the cup, their fingers brushing. Electricity sparked, sharp and unexpected. She pulled back quickly. I'm sorry. For what? For complicating your life. He studied her. You didn't complicate it. You started a war. No, he said. He did. Her eyes filled. What happens when it ends? Junseo stepped closer. Then we decide what kind of world comes after. Before she could reply, alarms blared through the house. Min-tae's voice echoed down the hall. Boss. Breach at the south gate. Myra's blood ran cold. Junseo grabbed a gun from the drawer, eyes blazing. Stay here. No, she said, fear sharpening into resolve. I'm done hiding. He looked at her, really looked and nodded once. Then stay behind me, he said. Outside, gunfire cracked the night. And somewhere in the chaos, Jinwook smiled, believing this was his chance. He was wrong. Gunfire tore through the night like thunder ripping open the sky. Myra's breath came in sharp bursts as Junseo pushed her behind him, one arm outstretched, gun steady, eyes cold and focused. Men shouted. Glass shattered. The alarms wailed like something alive and dying all at once. Stay down, he ordered. She crouched behind a marble pillar, heart hammering so hard she feared it would hurt the baby. She pressed both hands to her stomach, whispering, We're okay. We're okay. Even as fear screamed the opposite. Outside, headlights crashed through the gate. More men. Too many. Min-tae's voice crackled through the comms. They're pushing from the east wing. Junseo fired, precise, controlled. One man dropped. Then another. Mira saw it then. This wasn't chaos to him. It was choreography. Violence he had mastered so completely it bent to his will. And still, when a bullet ricocheted too close, he glanced back at her first. That was when she understood. This wasn't just protection. This was possession of a different kind. Boss. Min-tae shouted. Jinwook's here. The name sliced through Mira like ice. Jinwook emerged from the shadows, soaked in rain, eyes wild with desperation and hate. You think you can steal what's mine? He screamed. You think hiding her makes you a savior? Mira stood before Junseo could stop her. No, she said, voice shaking but loud. You never owned me. Jinwook laughed, unhinged. You're carrying my blood. Silence hit like a bomb. Junseo didn't move. Is that true? He asked quietly. Myra's throat closed. No. Jinwook sneered. She's lying. She's not, Mira said, tears spilling. The baby isn't yours. You beat me because you found out. Jinwook froze. Junseo's gaze sharpened. Whose child is it? Mira swallowed, every wall she'd built collapsing. Someone I loved. Someone who died. You killed him. Jinwook's face twisted. He was weak. The air around Junseo turned lethal. I knew him, Junseo said slowly. Didn't I? Mira nodded. He worked for you. He tried to leave. He wanted a life. Understanding slammed into place. Junseo stepped forward, gun lowering. Not in mercy, but in finality. You killed one of my men, he said. And then you tried to break his family. Jin-wook backed away, panic flooding his eyes. This doesn't end well for you. It ends, Jun-seo said, right now. A single shot rang out. Jin-wook fell. The rain washed the blood away as if the night itself was done carrying his sins. Sirens wailed in the distance. Not police. Jun-seo's people. Control returning. Myra's legs gave out. Jun-seo caught her before she hit the ground, lowering her gently, hands trembling for the first time she'd seen. It's over, he said, voice rough. He's gone. She sobbed into his chest, grief and relief tangling so tightly she couldn't separate them. I thought I'd die there, she whispered. I thought my baby would die with me. He closed his eyes, forehead resting against hers. That will never happen. Days passed. The city whispered. A rival crew dismantled overnight. A man erased from memory. Power shifted. Mira healed. Physically first. Then slowly something deeper. She walked the gardens. Ate without flinching. Slept without nightmares. One evening, she found Jun-seo on the balcony, watching the lights below. You don't look like a monster, she said softly. He smiled faintly. That's how monsters survive. She stepped beside him. You could have walked away. I tried, he admitted. Then you sent me those pictures. Her voice trembled. By mistake. No, he said, turning to her. By fate. She searched his face. What happens now? He took a breath. You can leave. I'll give you anything you need. And if I don't want to, she asked. His eyes darkened. Then you stay. On your terms. She placed his hand gently over her stomach. The baby kicked. Jun-seo froze. She's strong, Mira whispered. Like her father. His throat tightened. I failed him. You're protecting her, Mira said. That matters. Weeks later, headlines exploded. A charity foundation announced. A new hospital wing funded anonymously. A woman spotted at the side of a feared kingpin. Alive, unbroken. In a quiet room, Mira went into labor. Jun-seo stayed. He didn't look away. Didn't flinch. Held her hand through every scream, every tear. When the baby cried, he broke. She's beautiful, Mira whispered. Jun-seo nodded, tears sliding freely. She'll never know fear. Mira looked at him, heart full and aching. What about you? He met her gaze. I'm learning. Outside, the city buzzed, unaware that something rare had happened. A mistake had saved a life. A monster had chosen mercy. And a battered pregnant woman had changed the fate of a king. The first night after the birth, Mira couldn't sleep. The room was dim, washed in soft amber light. The quiet broken only by the tiny sounds of a new life learning how to exist. Her daughter lay swaddled against her chest, impossibly small, impossibly heavy with meaning. Mira traced her finger along the baby's cheek, tears slipping silently down her temples. She looks like him, she whispered. Jun-seo stood by the window, arms crossed, guarding the room like the world might try to take this from him if he blinked. She looks like you, he said. Mira smiled faintly. You're lying. He shook his head. I don't lie to you. That was when she knew something fundamental had shifted. Not just in her life, but in his. Days turned into weeks. The city learned to breathe differently around Kang Jun-seo. He didn't disappear. He didn't lose power. If anything, his grip tightened, but his violence changed shape. Where there had once been fear without warning, now there was order. Lines were drawn. Certain things became untouchable. Hospitals, women, children. Anyone who crossed those lines vanished. Quietly, Mira noticed. You're changing things because of us, she said one night as she rocked the baby. Jun-seo leaned in the doorway, watching the way Mira moved now. Careful, strong, no longer broken. I'm changing them because they were wrong. She met his gaze. You didn't think that before. No, he admitted. Before, I only cared about control. And now, he said, voice low. I care about what survives me. The word scared him more than any threat ever had. Mira didn't respond right away. She kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing her in like oxygen. You know I can't stay forever, she said softly. He nodded. I know. But the silence that followed was thick with everything neither of them wanted to say. Weeks later, the threat came, not with guns but with truth. Min-tae entered Junseo's office pale. "Boss, there's a problem." Junseo didn't look up. "There's always a problem. Someone leaked the hospital incident. The photos. The assault. Your involvement." Junseo's jaw tightened. "Who? A journalist. Independent. She's asking questions no one's supposed to answer." Mira overheard. "People will find me," she said calmly. "And when they do, they'll realize what you are." Junseo turned to her. "I don't care." "I do," she said. "Because if they see me as your weakness, they'll never stop coming." He stepped closer. "You're not my weakness." She smiled sadly. "I'm your humanity. And that's worse." The article broke 3 days later. Not names. Not crimes. Just a story. A battered pregnant woman. A wrong message. A powerful man who answered when no one else did. Public opinion exploded. Some called it a lie. Some called it propaganda. Some called it a miracle. And some called for blood. Junseo watched the news in silence as Mira fed their daughter. "You should leave," he said finally. Her hands stilled. "Is that an order?" "No," he said quietly. "It's me loving you enough to let you go." Her throat tightened. "You don't get to decide that alone." "I do," he said. "Because if they come for me, they'll use you." She stood, eyes blazing. "I survived hell without you. Don't reduce me now." He stared at her. This woman who had walked through fire and refused to stay ashes. "What do you want?" he asked. She stepped closer, placing the baby gently in his arms. "For her," she said, nodding to the child. "I want peace." He looked down at the tiny life staring back at him, trusting him without knowing what he was. "I can't promise that," he whispered. "Then I'll leave," Mira said. "And I'll build it myself." His chest constricted. "Say it," she said softly. "Say you want me to stay." He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That was her answer. The goodbye was quiet. No drama. No shouting. Just truth. Junseo funded her new life under layers of anonymity. A house by the sea. Protection she'd never see. A future not stained by his name. At the airport, Mira turned back one last time. "You saved me," she said. "But don't confuse that with owning me." He nodded. "I never did." She hesitated. "If the world were different." He finished for her. "I would have met you without blood on my hands." She smiled through tears. "Maybe in another life." Years passed. The underworld spoke of Kang Junseo with less fear and more respect. He became quieter, more distant, almost human. And somewhere far away, a little girl grew up strong and unafraid, her mother teaching her that love never hurts, and power is only real when it protects. On her 7th birthday, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a simple bracelet and a note. "You were never a mistake. You were the beginning of my redemption." Mira closed her eyes, heart full. Far away, Kang Junseo stood alone on a balcony, watching the sunrise instead of the city. For the first time in his life, he smiled without darkness following. Because sometimes, the wrong message doesn't destroy you. Sometimes, it saves everyone. Dawn broke with a sound like glass cracking. Junseo heard it from the balcony, the city exhaling, unaware of how close it had come to burning itself down again. His phone vibrated. "Min-tae." "Boss," he said quietly. "They've made their move." Junseo didn't turn. "Who?" "The remnants. 3 crews. They're testing you." Junseo closed his eyes. So it hadn't ended. It never truly did. "Where?" he asked. "Busan corridor. Shipping yards." Junseo nodded once. "Contain it. No civilians." Min-tae hesitated. "Like before." Junseo's jaw tightened. Exactly like before. When the call ended, he stayed where he was, fingers gripping the cold railing. He hadn't told Mira this part. That mercy didn't erase hunger. That monsters only learned restraint when consequences were absolute. By nightfall, the shipping yards were quiet again. No explosions. No headlines. Just contracts cancelled, leaders gone, power rebalanced with surgical precision. The underworld learned a new rule. Kang Jun-seo no longer ruled through terror alone. He ruled through boundaries. Weeks later, halfway across the world, Mira woke from a dream with her heart racing. The sea outside her window rolled endlessly, calm and blue. Her daughter slept beside her, tiny chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Mira pressed a hand to her heart. "He's in danger," she whispered. Sunlight poured in, warm and ordinary, mocking the fear twisting in her chest. She told herself she was imagining it. She always had been good at that. Until the email arrived. No sender. No signature. Just one line. He kept his promise. Mira closed her eyes. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or afraid. Years later, when her daughter asked about her father, about the man who wasn't her father but somehow still mattered, Mira told her the truth without blood. "He was someone who lived in the dark," she said gently. "And one day he chose not to." "Because of you?" the girl asked. Mira smiled softly. "Because of a mistake." On the other side of the world, Jun-seo stood in a courtroom. Not as a defendant, but as a witness. The world had shifted again. Governments had learned what the underworld always knew. Power didn't disappear. It negotiated. When the judge asked why he had dismantled entire criminal networks only to replace them with something quieter, something controlled, Jun-seo answered honestly. "Because chaos feeds on the weak," he said. "And someone has to stop it." Outside, reporters shouted questions. "Do you regret your past?" Jun-seo paused. Images flashed through his mind. Blood. Fire. A bruised woman shaking on a hospital bed. A newborn's cry breaking something open inside him forever. "Yes," he said simply. That night he returned to his empty house. He no longer filled it with noise or women or violence. Only silence. And memory. He took out a small box from a locked drawer. Inside were photos he never looked at too long. Mira, smiling faintly at the sea. A child running barefoot on sand. A life that existed because of him, but not with him. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. It was a photo. A child's drawing. A tall man. A small girl. The sun drawn too big, too bright. Below it, messy handwriting read, "Mom says mistakes can save people." Jun-seo sat down slowly, breath leaving his chest in a shaky laugh that turned into tears. For the first time since childhood, he cried without shame. Not because of guilt, but because redemption, he had learned, was not loud. It didn't come with forgiveness or applause. It came quietly, in distance, in restraint, in choosing not to destroy what you loved. And somewhere between a wrong message and a broken night, Kang Jun-seo had stopped being just a king of shadows and become a man who knew when to let the light live without him. The last time Mira saw his name, it wasn't on a screen. It was in the wind. She stood on the shoreline at dusk, waves licking the sand like quiet secrets, her daughter running ahead of her with a laugh that carried farther than any scream ever had. The bracelet still circled the child's wrist, slightly too big, adjusted year after year, never removed. "Mama," the girl called. Look. She had built something crooked and proud out of driftwood and shells. A house. A door. A sun too large to be realistic. Mira smiled, but her chest tightened. Somewhere far away, a man was watching a different sunset. Kang Jun-seo stood alone in a room with no decorations, no guards, no weapons in sight. The city outside was quieter than it used to be. Or maybe he was. He no longer counted enemies. He counted consequences. Min-tae had left years ago, choosing a life with less blood. Others followed. Some didn't. That was the cost. Jun-seo had paid it. The news played softly in the background. Talks. Reforms. The slow dismantling of systems that had once fed him. He didn't delude himself. Darkness didn't disappear. It only learned new shapes. But it wasn't hungry in the same way anymore. He turned the television off. On his desk lay a single photograph, worn at the edges. Mira not looking at the camera. Laughing at something unseen. Alive. He had never crossed the distance again. Not because he couldn't. Because he wouldn't. That was the promise he kept. Years later, When the girl was old enough to ask harder questions, Mira answered them honestly. Was he bad? The girl asked one night, curled under blankets, eyes wide with curiosity instead of fear. Mira thought carefully. He did bad things. Then why did he help you? Because people are more than the worst thing they've done, Mira said. And sometimes they change because they finally see the cost. The girl was quiet for a long time. Did you love him? Mira looked out the window at the moonlit sea. I loved what he chose to become. That answer stayed with the girl. It shaped her. Years later, she would stand up to men who thought power meant cruelty. She would protect without violence when she could, and without hesitation when she couldn't. She would never confuse fear with respect. And she would never know how close she'd come to being born into silence. On a rainy night not unlike the first, Kang Jun-seo felt something in his chest tighten without warning. He opened a letter that had arrived without return address. Inside was a photograph. A young woman by the sea. Strong. Smiling. Whole. On the back, a simple message. She's safe. You kept your promise. Jun-seo closed his eyes. That was enough. Not forgiveness. Not reunion. Not absolution. Enough. The world kept spinning. Stories moved on. New monsters were born. New heroes rose. But somewhere between a battered room and a wrong message, a line had been crossed that could never be uncrossed. A woman had survived. A child had lived without fear. And a man who once ruled through violence had learned the hardest truth of all. Power doesn't lie in how much you can destroy. It lies in what you choose to protect. And sometimes, the smallest mistake changes everything. The sea was calm the morning everything finally broke. Mira stood barefoot on the sand, her daughter chasing waves that collapsed gently at her feet. The bracelet still circled the child's wrist, glinting in the sunlight like a promise that had never faded. Mama, the girl laughed. Watch me. Mira smiled, but her heart tightened. That feeling again. The one she never talked about. The one that came before storms, before truths, before change. Her phone vibrated. One message. Just a location. Seoul. Her breath caught. She stared at the screen for a long time before whispering, "It's time." That night, halfway across the world, Kang Jun-seo sat alone in a darkened room. Hands folded, expression unreadable. The city lights reflected off the glass in front of him. Fractured like the life he'd learned to live with restraint instead of control. You don't have to do this, Min-tae said quietly from the doorway. Jun-seo didn't look back. Yes, Ido. She built a life, Min-tae pressed. You promised. I promised not to chase, Jun-seo said. I never promised to stop answering when she came back. The knock came moments later. Soft. Real. Not a dream. Jun-seo stood. When he opened the door, the world stopped. Mira stood there. Stronger. Calmer. Still unmistakably her. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then Mira exhaled shakily. You look older. He swallowed. You look alive. She laughed softly, tears already forming. I am. Behind her, a small voice piped up. Manga. Jun-seo's gaze dropped. The girl stared up at him with wide, curious eyes, unafraid, unbroken, whole. This, Mira said quietly, is my daughter. Jun-seo knelt without thinking, his breath uneven. Hello. The girl tilted her head. You're tall. A sound escaped him that was half laugh, half sob. I hear that a lot. Mira watched his hands tremble as he stood again. She wanted to meet you, Mira said. I told her the truth. That you protected us. That you chose not to own us. Jun-seo closed his eyes. I didn't come looking for forgiveness. Good, she said. Because I didn't come to give it. Silence stretched, heavy, honest. I came, Mira continued, voice steady. Because I don't want distance anymore. And I won't live in fear of loving the wrong thing again. He looked at her then, really looked. You'd be choosing a hard life, he said. With a man who carries shadows. She stepped closer. I survived worse than shadows. What I won't survive is regret. His voice broke. I don't know how to love without protecting too much. She reached for his hand. Then we learn. Together. The The city outside breathed. Somewhere deep inside him, something long frozen finally cracked open. Days later, headlines tried to guess. Rumors flew. But nothing exploded. No war. No chaos. No blood. Because Kang Jun-seo did the unthinkable. He stepped back. Not away, but down. He transferred power. Dissolved structures. Left behind an empire that no longer owned him. When reporters asked why, he answered simply, "I chose a life that could look me in the eyes." Years later, people would whisper that the most dangerous man in Seoul disappeared not because he was defeated, but because he fell in love. On a quiet evening, Mira sat on a balcony overlooking the city, her daughter asleep inside, Jun-seo beside her, his arm resting carefully around her shoulders. "You could have walked away," she said. "So could you," he replied. She smiled. "I didn't want to." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Neither did I." The city lights shimmered below them, no longer something to conquer, but something to live within. For the first time, there was no fear in her chest. For the first time, there was no violence in his hands. Just two people who had survived the wrong message and chosen to answer each other anyway. Because sometimes, the mistake doesn't just save you. Sometimes, it brings you home.